Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into what I think is one of the most fascinating paradoxes in all of human history. When we talk about the Indus Valley Civilization, which is literally one of humanity's absolute first great urban societies, we almost always call it the Harappan civilization. Just think about that for a second. An entire ancient world takes its name from a single city, Harappa. But here's the wild part, the incredible hook. Despite more than a century of digging, exploring, and analyzing, Harappa is basically a city full of unread chapters. So we're going to piece together exactly what we know, what we've tragically lost, and the massive mysteries that are still buried in the dirt.
It's honestly incredibly mysterious that we named this entire ancient civilization after a site that, well, we barely even understand. Entire sections of this city still lie completely hidden beneath the earth. Countless artifacts are completely undiscovered, and some of its greatest secrets actually vanished before archaeologists even knew they were there. Harappa was the key that unlocked our awareness of this whole ancient world, yet its own story is still heavily obscured.
So let's go back a bit. In the 1820s, a British explorer named Charles Masson visited the ruins. He saw these massive mounds rising right out of the plains of Punjab, all covered in ancient bricks. But he had absolutely no idea he was standing on top of a 4,000-year-old civilization. At the time, historians pretty much thought ancient urban centers only popped up in Egypt and Mesopotamia. It wasn't until the 1920s when archaeologists like Dairam Sani and Sir John Marshall started systematic excavations that the academic world was completely shocked by the true age and scale of the place. But unfortunately, in the mid-19th century, a disaster struck. And it's one of the most tragic ironies of archaeology, really. British engineers in the mid-19th century needed building materials for these new railway lines across the region. And decades before anyone fully understood what Harappa actually was, these ancient mounds just looked like a giant, super convenient quarry. Workers unknowingly looted thousands upon thousands of ancient, baked bricks that had been perfectly crafted 4 millennia earlier. And what did they do with them? They used them as ballast, the foundational gravel for modern railway trucks. And because of that, what vanished beneath those colonial tracks can never be recovered. Entire buildings, massive walls, and absolutely critical archaeological layers were just dismantled and scattered. Yes, the railway helped connect a modern empire, but it erased irreplaceable chapters of human history right along with it. We're literally never going to know what was lost in those layers. Section 1. A hidden metropolis, rebuilding the past. Now, despite that heartbreaking 19th century destruction, what archaeologists did manage to uncover in the 1920s is an absolute triumph. When proper excavations finally got underway, researchers realized this sprawling urban center flourished over 4,000 years ago. This discovery literally rewrote the history books overnight. It meant the Indus Valley civilization stood shoulder to shoulder with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia as one of humanity's earliest, greatest societies. And they didn't just build a basic settlement either. They built a master-planned city. We're talking about grid-like, carefully planned streets and sophisticated drainage systems that, honestly, rival the plumbing in some modern apartments today. They had dedicated workshops filled with craft specialists, making these highly detailed beads, pottery, and tools. Plus, they were engaged in long-distance trade, moving goods across hundreds, maybe even thousands of kilometers. This was a buzzing, incredibly powerful economic hub. To put that into perspective, at its absolute peak, Harappa was a booming metropolis, housing tens of thousands of people. It was a central economic engine of the ancient world. It was vastly larger and way more densely populated than those early explorers in the 1820s could have ever imagined in their wildest dreams. It was a primary node of a vast, vibrant civilization. But today, archaeologists face a really unique dilemma. Massive residential districts, workshops, and bustling marketplaces remain totally buried beneath the soil, on purpose. Why? Well, because excavation is inherently destructive. Once you dig up a layer of dirt, you can never put it back exactly the way it was. So modern archaeologists have made this incredibly disciplined choice to just leave large sections of Harappa alone. They're saving these untouched areas for future generations, who will hopefully have better, less destructive ways to study them. Section 2. The unread pages. Mysteries still unsolved. The things we don't know about Harappa are honestly just as fascinating as what we do know. In ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, power was loud. We find massive tombs for kings, sprawling royal palaces, and giant monumental statues of rulers. But Harappa, it's bizarrely unique. There are no obvious kings, no palaces, no massive monuments to dictators. They left virtually zero obvious architectural trace of their rulers. So it really begs the question, how do you manage a vast, highly organized civilization spanning hundreds of miles, complete with standardized weights, planned streets, and huge trade networks without obvious kings? Seriously, who is in charge? How were decisions made? The political structure of Harappan society remains one of the most baffling, head-scratching mysteries in all of archaeology. And it gets even more frustrating. Archaeologists have found hundreds of these beautiful, intricately carved seals across the Indus Valley, all inscribed with symbols. But they are completely undeciphered. We cannot read a single word of their language. We don't even know what they called themselves. Uncovering a longer text, something like a Rosetta Stone for the Indus script, is basically the absolute holy grail for archaeologists, because until we can read their words, their voices remain totally silent. Section 3. The future of the past. Modern science unlocks history. But hey, the good news is we don't necessarily need a Rosetta Stone to keep learning. Today, we've got an incredible, non-destructive toolkit that's allowing us to read those missing chapters anyway. Ground-penetrating radar lets us map out hidden streets and structures still buried deep underground. Satellite imagery reveals these massive landscape patterns you simply cannot see from the ground. DNA analysis tracks ancient migrations, and chemical studies of pottery and bones, they tell us exactly what these people ate and who they traded with. We are gathering literal mountains of data without destroying a single inch of the site. So Harappa is definitely not a dead ruin. It has evolved into an active, working laboratory. Every single new scan, every DNA swab, and every chemical analysis continuously rewrites our understanding of human history. The site is actively teaching us, day by day. It's almost like it's coming back to life. So, to wrap this all up, Harappa gave its name to an entire civilization, yet its own story remains highly fragmented. Parts were lost to time, parts were tragically destroyed by 19th century railway tracks, and massive parts are intentionally waiting right under the soil for future technology. It truly is a city of mysteries, and a city of missing chapters. With satellite scans and DNA technology advancing at absolute lightning speed, we are on the verge of incredible breakthroughs. Every new piece of data could completely upend what we know about our ancient origins. So, I'll leave you with this. What missing chapter will Harappa reveal next? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.